Folks, if you're Tacitus today, your pushback channel, and thank you for joining this audio live stream. In this essay, I'd like to talk about really two things, I guess. Well, one is about the advent of white people being erased from all advertising and, in fact, all entertainment, and where white people are depicted at all, it's either they're in background or put in a negative, particularly negative context. So, and we see this all over the Western world now, whether you're looking at, TV shows made in Norway or Britain, America, Ireland, anywhere and everywhere, white people are being erased. Something, by the way, that doesn't happen in any other parts of the world. Like if you go to China, it's Chinese people. If you go to Japan, it's Japanese people. If you go to Korea, it's Koreans. If you go to Africa, it's Africans. In fact, various countries like Nigeria, it's the law that you must have black people in the advert, or native, local native people in there. Only the white race, controlled by the globalist cabal, only the white race is erasing itself. I mean, just contemplate that. Has it ever happened in human history that a race of people is erasing itself? I mean, for goodness sakes. But and I think we see it. I was watching. I only saw it for 5 minutes or so, but there was some decent big names, acting names in a new TV show that I thought, well, I'll give this a look. I'll spend 5 minutes on it. It's online, so I thought I'll have a look, see where it goes. Now, the baddie straight away is a straight white man, obviously a neo-Nazi, pretends to be a good family man, but in fact, he really is an evil, fucking fascist, fucking Nazi, misogynist, racist Hitler. And he's being brought to book by, he's being made accountable by women, strong women. You go, girl, strong, who may only weigh 100 pounds. But I tell you something, the 100 pounds, they're as skinny as fucking out of shape, but they can beat the living shit out of a 250-pound, roided out muscle dude, and they can do it with one hand without breaking a sweat. So the fantasy world that these people have to, the makers of these shows have to create, and they're trying so hard to introduce all characters other than white people in a positive light. So, in all the power positions, the judges and the doctors and the forensic experts, they're all black women and so on. So they're trying so hard to do this. And obviously, it's a huge fantasy world. Now, we see this in advertising, even in Australia, where there's a very small black population, quite a large brown population, but very small black population. Then the black people are heavily overrepresented. You'd think that 50-60% of the population was black, the way it's depicted. You'd also believe that pretty much just about every relationship is a mixed race relationship, which is, again, a fantasy world being forced and imposed upon us. I mean, who makes these decisions? It's not a reflection of the real world. Is it a reflection of the world that excuse me, the globalists want? Is that what it is? I mean, what is it exactly? Is it propaganda to re-engineer society? We could be onto something there. But the mixed race couples that you see, if they're even 1 or 2% of the total, even that's generous. So mixed race couples are very rare. To affect the numbers of alleged mixed race couples, the statisticians do things like if the English guy marries the Scottish girl, they go, "Oh, well, that's mixed race." Well, no, it's not. But I mean, you could argue that, I suppose, on a very technical grounds. But in order to jump the numbers up, they use those sorts of tricks. Or if Hungarian marries a Polish person, these sorts of things. So also nearly all the gay relationships that they depict, and there's a lot of those, you'd think that a quarter of relationships were gay, but and they're mixed race as well. In the very few instances where you do see a white family, they often insert black or brown children into the white couple. If the white couple has white children, which is a bit of a no-no these days, if you want to depict a white couple with white children, then you're a fucking fascist, fucking Nazi, and it's just nothing else to it. That's what you are. But if they if they've got again the white couple with the white children, then all their best friends are black. That's the propaganda line that's taken. So this is the level of fantasia, and these are the people that are pushing this. The people I know who are very much in favour of the mass migration. Yeah, let's get more black and brown people. No one they know is black or brown, other than the guy who comes to mow the lawn or something like that, or clean the pool. They may be black and brown, but they don't hang around with any black or brown people at all. In fact, many of them say, "I don't want to live anywhere near those people. I don't want them living anywhere near me." But I want lots of them to come in, as long as it's someone else's problem to deal with. The minute it becomes that, some of the social justice warrior type folks are sort of say in the sense of this equity thing that the globalists are madly pushing as hard as they can at the moment. The American political scene is a perfect illustration of that. The pushing of equity. Something just came up on the screen, so I cancelled that. So this idea of equity is to produce equal outcomes regardless of the quality of the inputs. So people are entitled to equal outcomes, even though they may be, for example, mentally retarded, or they refuse to work, or they're lazy, or they have a dissolute lifestyle, or they're drunken gamblers, but they're still entitled, particularly along things like race and gender lines. So I just wanted to talk a bit about the difference between, say, the African black diaspora when they come to the West, and say the Indian or the subcontinent, as in Pakistan, Bangladesh, India, when they come to the West, because between if you look at the population of the Indian subcontinent and the population of Africa, you're talking about getting on for 3.5 billion with a B, 3.5 billion people. So around 50% of the world's population, not quite 50%, but near 50% of the world's population comes from Africa and the Indian subcontinent. So they're rich sources of surplus populations that the globalists are aggressively and desperately moving from those countries into the white Western countries without the approval or consent of the local white population. And if you say anything about it, question it, or oppose it, or point out the folly of such behaviour, then you're a damn fucking fascist Nazi Hitler. So I just wanted to put the differences in perspective. Now, on one side, a lot of commentators, even ones that are against globalisation, are saying, well, the black diaspora, throughout their human history, has never really produced a successful economy unless it's completely based on enslaving their fellow citizens and selling them to, like, Arab slavers or whatever. Nearly all these black countries didn't even have the wheel when the white men turned up. So, or any form of technology. Say in 900 BC, the Carthaginians were smelting iron and had learned to smelt iron to a degree, or say 700 BC, had learned to smelt iron to a quality that it was the late 1800s before any black area or black people in Africa were able to achieve that same level of iron smelting technology. That gives you an idea that the North African Arabs were 2,500 plus years technologically ahead of the black people in Africa. That gives you an idea to not only how slow the technology came, but how unwilling they were to learn and adopt the higher technology of the people they came in contact with. So that's an interesting phenomenon in itself. So there's an argument on one side that the black people need more help in terms of the equity outcomes than every other group. And there's an argument saying, well, the people from the Indian subcontinent, they don't need any help. They do fine. They become doctors and engineers and lawyers and so on, software programmers, coders and the like. Why can they do it and the black people not doing it? And the Indians, excuse me a minute, and the Indians, or people from the subcontinent generally, they seem to manage fine without equity programs. And I would dispute all of that, by the way, or in varying degrees. India and the entire Indian subcontinent, every country within it, is a total fucking basket case, dirt poor basket case, and has been, for a long, long time, well before the Europeans turned up. Now, due to the caste system that they have in India, where the Brahmins at the apex, the Brahmins effectively can tax the peasants, the untouchables as they call them. So if they die, nobody cares. They just walk over the dead body in the street. So they could tax the untouchables or the lower downs, that they weren't even the shit on their shoes, and they could create these, some impressive buildings like the Taj Mahal or whatever, and also they were quite active in, say, goldsmithing, things like that was quite an industry. So they could gather, concentrate quite a lot of wealth only because of that caste system, which brutalized 80% of the population into really paying, exorbitant, crushing taxes to the rich. And then these rich, the Brahmins, assumed themselves to be the masters of the universe and spiritually superior to all others and that sort of stuff. But the economy has never been successful. They've never developed technology or anything of that nature. Even in the late 1400s, and early 1500s, when the white folks, like the Portuguese, for example, started turning up to trade and so on around Goa and places like that, the technology was so far ahead of anything the Indians had that they were in awe of the ships, long distance sailing ships, cannons, and so on. So the idea that and a lot of people say the Indians are so clever, they do so well at school and university, they're so clever, wow. And well, let's assume that's so for the moment. Why can't they be clever in their own country? Why do they fail so completely to be clever in their own country? Let's even assume for the moment that they are clever in their own country. Why is the per capita GDP of India, an Indian citizen, why is it 1/25 of the advanced Western economies? Why is it that far behind? I mean, if the Indian economy was like a mid-level economy, you go, okay. Now, because they got 1.4+ billion people, they've got an overall economic mass, but it's still that their economy is only. And now, bear in mind, Australia's got 26 million people. 26 million people. India has over 1.4 billion people. Yet the Indian economy is only about four times the size of the Australian economy. Just consider this for a minute. 1.4 billion people versus 26 million people. And yet the Indian economy is only just 4 times bigger than the Australian economy. Now that illustrates what a basket case it is, and it's been a basket case for a long time. So it's not something that happened when white folks turned up, and as soon as white folks got out the way, the situation actually went backwards in India for a long time. So this now the Indian economy is sort of picked up in the last 20 odd years, but only because Western countries have been exporting jobs to India. That is the only basis for its prosperity. There is nothing that's self-generated there, nothing. Now, India is also desperate to export its surplus population. The elites of India gag over the idea of getting rid of their tens of millions of unwanted people to the West. It's something that makes them go into a starry-eyed swoon when they even think about it. So why is it that the Indians if they're so clever, why can they not be clever in their own country? And if they are clever in their own country, why does such cleverness make no difference? Why are they not able to make their own country a wealthy, functioning country? Why not? Is it because of the corruption, which is absolutely rampant? Is it because of religious internal strife, which is rampant? Is it because of petty tribalism and so on, which is rampant? Or what is? I mean, are there other reasons? Is it because that everyone who's got a decent qualification from university, or whatever, has bribed a lecturer or one of the professors to get it? I mean, what is it exactly? And then why do they suddenly only become clever when they move to the West? Is the West got an infinitely superior system which uniquely allows Indians and only Indians to be much cleverer when they arrive? I mean, just think about that, and I'd look forward to seeing your views in the comments. Now, when Indians first started arriving in big numbers in Australia, they and the West generally, but Australia in particular in this instance, they didn't do well at all. They were, in my view, that they struggled to find employment. If they did get jobs, they didn't last very long. That they were, most people. I mean, it wasn't unusual to find an Indian who'd a Brahmin who had theoretically a good education and quality degrees, where they'd be they'd go through a different job every month. So what was that? So I couldn't find any successful Indian, and I struggled really to find. And I was in a position to hire people, then and in areas where Indians were supposed to be prominent, such as software coding. And I struggled to find this even at one. I struggled to find even one competent programmer, or even one person that was actually genuinely qualified. I found that they were claiming to have qualifications they didn't have, were claiming to have skills they didn't have, and were so haughty and self-important that they would reject and refuse any notion that they should be held accountable. So only when the local government, the Australian government, because they started bringing out large numbers of Indians, only when the government instituted affirmative action policies in education, in hiring for government jobs, race and gender quotas, or only then did the Indians start to get jobs, and I don't know how many of them got it on merit. Very few, I would think. Certainly the ones I'm dealing with. And it was interesting. I went recently to get one of my licenses renewed, and it was a bit of a drama doing it online. The system kept falling over. So I went in personally to do it, and there was only one white person in the whole thing who's a white lesbian, and the rest were all Indian. Or one Chinese guy, and the rest were all Indian. And again, that's a public service body. So only by expanding the number of jobs in the public service and giving a very high proportion of those to just arrived Indians, that's the only way that they're getting these people jobs. So this idea that the Indians are being successful outside of affirmative action, I don't buy it at all. It may be so, but again, I come back to why can they only be bright and clever and pass exams in the West? How can they only do it here but nowhere else? They don't appear to be successful anywhere else they go, not that I can see. And if you look at again, why can't they do well in India? Why can't they make India or the people from Bangladesh or Pakistan? Why are all these places not doing well? Yet these people are supposedly wonderful immigrants who do incredibly well and are so clever and bright and high achieving when they come to the West. I don't believe that. I don't think they are high achieving. And if they are high achieving, why can't they be there? So now coming to the difference in attitudes over money and wealth, the black diaspora has very much a socialist view that you don't own things personally, but you share in what the what the community or the tribe produces. So they see that, well, white people, you're so rich, you've got so many things, your nice cars, your nice houses, your yachts on the water, you have so much. You should share it with us. That's how we see the world. We see the world where people share what they have, and which is the same, by the way, for Native Americans to a very large extent. But the black people, the black diaspora and the African diaspora, very rarely, I mean, tribal chieftains and those sort of goons maybe, but they perceive that the things are shared tribally. So you don't own things personally, the tribe or the community owns it. And they still have those views today in the United States or Britain or wherever they go, the Caribbean and so on. There is a view that everything should be shared. So if your neighbour, strikes it rich, strikes gold, then he's obligated to share all that with you. And you see the same thing with the Indigenous black people of Australia. If one of their tribe gets given an affirmative action job in the local supermarket, for example, as far as the tribe's concerned, that tribal member now owns everything that's in the supermarket and has to share it with them. So if they go in and help themselves to whatever's in the supermarket, that's not stealing, because their tribal member works there, and therefore everything is communally owned and everyone has equal right to take whatever they want because it's part of the community ownership thing. And this idea, and when they get arrested for stealing, it's, well, I'm not stealing. I mean, hey, a tribal member works there. What do you mean stealing? What are you talking about? So there's this sense of communal ownership that it seems to be almost impossible to shake most, not all, but most of the black diaspora out of, because that was like, if you consider, people that moved from Africa in the 1700s, for example, so they've been in the United States for over 300 years. And yet still have, to a large extent, the same habits. Now, the tribes in Africa were constantly raiding each other, having petty, territorial disputes, killing each other, and spearing each other, and so on, which is the same in the black ghetto neighborhoods in the United States today. If you look at the amount of black people that are murdered and killed, it's typically nearly always in shootouts and with other black people. The idea that it's white people killing them, which is the propaganda line they love to push, is bullshit. It's black people killing each other. So they're living very much the same life and attitudes to life and society and wealth, attitudes to wealth and sharing and so on, that they had in Africa. And they still have it today. And if they went back to Africa, they'd probably fit in straight away, because their attitudes haven't really, their expectations may be higher because they live next to rich white people, but their behavioural attitudes are more or less the same. Now, looking at the Indians and the subcontinent generally, I'm of the view that the subcontinent people make very bad migrants, certainly in the main. You'll always find exceptions, but their view of wealth is different, and this idea that they can get by without help is simply nonsense. The subcontinent people are allowed to live 20 to a 1 or 2 bedroom apartment, which is against the law in every Western country, but they look the other way. If they were forced to abide by the law and live no more than, say, 4 people to the apartment, then their costs of living would change, drastically, and that would have a very material effect on how desirable the West is to come to. It's only because of affirmative action, gifting of degrees and high school passes, gifting of jobs, affirmative action jobs. It's only for unqualified Indian people. It's only because of that, and because they're allowed to bypass the laws, and because they can live 3 or 4 generations in one house. It's only because of that they appear to be relatively prospering. Outside of that, I don't think they would be able to demonstrate any substantial improvement. Now, when you talk to Indians, that are here, they'll say, "Well, I'm here because it's cleaner, it's quieter, the public services work. There's far less corruption." And so on. And I don't have to bribe someone to get a job. I don't have to bribe someone to get my kid into school and that sort of stuff. And they speak quite highly about the quality of life. But then at the same time, they believe India is spiritually and morally and culturally is a vastly superior place to the West. Now, maybe that's true. I don't argue that, the spiritual and the moral aspect of it in certainly the sense that they may mean it. but they think the West is beneath them. White people are beneath them. There's no way they'd interbreed or intermarry with white people, that sort of thing. They believe us to be an inferior caste to them, and all a bunch of Nazi racists to boot. So why do they come here? Oh, well, it's better quality of life. Better quality of life in a vastly inferior country. Da, da, da. And these are the ones that 5-6 generations down the track are still sending back to the country of origin for husbands and brides. Now, they also have a very different view of wealth than we in the West do, or most Western people do. They don't believe or understand how wealth is created. And this is an absolute, even sophisticated Indian people don't get it. They have come to the West not to create wealth, build wealth, but to take wealth. They perceive we have far too much, and they're going to take their piece of the action that their activists class has said, well, those white people have only stolen from us. India would be a rich country, wasn't for those damn white devils. And they buy into this utter and absolute nonsense. The Brahmins like it. The Brahmins in particular, because they were the god class until the white people turned up, and then the white people relegated them from the god class status they had, and they have never forgiven the white people for relegating their status in the eyes of their other, their fellow Indian citizens and so on. So the issue with the Indians is that and the subcontinent generally, there is a fixed pot of money that doesn't change. It doesn't get bigger at all. They can't conceive of wealth creation. Again, even sophisticated ones just stare at you blankly when you talk about it. So they believe that they can only get more money for themselves if they take it from the white person. And the way to do it is to break the laws, not pay the taxes, import, go through various forms of corruption. Because none of these people that come from a corrupt country is going to let go of the corruption thing. They just can't do it. That's the way of life, and that's the way of the world that they understand. And if they have put a bit of money under the table to somehow get a bit ahead of the next person, then that's completely acceptable in their cognizance. They hate it when they don't come first. Then it's racism, it's Hitler, and so on. But as long as they're coming first, then hey, that's fine. So they bring out their peasant buddies to come and work in the takeout food shops and so on. So they believe just taking more money is how it works. So when we come back now with the equity thing, the black diaspora sees equity as, well, give me what you have because you have more. We should share. You should share what you have with us because you have more. So damn white Nazi, give us what you have, which is, the black activists saying, give us free houses and all that sort of stuff. Then on the Indian side of it, or the subcontinent generally, because this can include sort of Pakistanis and Bangladeshis, they're more than happy for handouts. Probably the Muslims are more interested in handouts than, say, the Hindus are necessarily, but they believe they have the right to take through any illicit means. And they have a right to protect their tribe and family interests. And they believe taking from the white people is not only honorable and desirable and sensible, but a mark of just how good you are. Hey, I cheated a white person out of some money today. Oh, fuck, I'm a heavy hitting dude. So different concepts of wealth, and that feeds back into the different concepts or the different depictions of these races in advertising and movies and TV shows and so on. You've been a Tacitus today, your Pushback channel. Thank you for listening.